This is Kate and Connor. They are fourth year education students finishing their final teaching rounds at Edithvale Primary School. They have also been teaching young adults at a local TAFE for 2 years. What does effective teaching mean to you?
Okay, effective teaching to me includes engaging all of the students, catering for all students' needs, being flexible, can you jump in?
I guess being effective is reacting to what's happening in the classroom as it happens and making sure you're taking advantage of learning opportunities as they arise.
Yep.
Maybe not being so rigid in what you're delivering and making sure that you're flexible, I guess.
Yep.
Okay.
And also, I believe that an effective teacher will consistently update their knowledge, update their professional knowledge, and their content knowledge, or even update their skills in terms of technology, so they'll never be behind the students that they're teaching.
Yep. Anything else to add to that question?
Not right now.
Yeah, I think definitely making sure that learning's fun and the kids are enjoying it.
Yeah.
You know, so they want to come to school and they want to learn, as opposed to seeing it as a chore and something they have to do. That made me laugh.
That's fine.
Just ruined the video.
Do that one again.
What effective learning theories do you use and why?
Okay, I find myself always using the Gardner's multiple intelligences. Why is because when I was growing up, I found that I learnt a lot differently to other people, and sometimes my needs weren't catered for, so I couldn't learn what I wanted to learn the way I needed to learn it, which disadvantaged me majorly. So I always try and make an effort to know my students, to know what their learning abilities are and what they enjoy doing and how they learn best. So if there's something that can be done, if they have an opportunity to perform it in front of the class, or write something creative, draw something creative, or present it in a particular format that suits them, that will help them learn that concept, then I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Connor?
Yeah, I think this the same. I also reflect on multiple intelligences and that type of thing, but also from an outdoor education background, I think a lot of the things I do have like an experiential kind of twist to it, always leaning towards that sort of theory of learning through doing rather than rote learning and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So being involved in the learning.
Okay. And what effective assessment methods do you use and why?
Assessment, we haven't had, well, I in particular haven't had a lot to do with, not as much as I wanted to. I use a couple of different types of assessment. I use formative assessment and summative assessment. So, or I can use assessment of learning,
Yep.
as learning and for learning. So that covers, I will assess all the students before a particular subject or topic is taught and work out what they already know, and then I can plan for what I'll teach.
Okay, so do you observe them first, relating to what they already know? Yep, okay.
Yeah. Well, we can observe or ask questions or have discussions and brainstorms, and then I'll work out what they know and then plan from that. As they're learning, I can see the work that they're doing during class or homework and things like that. I can see where each student's up to, because you know, if they're doing the same or similar things. And then maybe at the end of a topic or at the end of a day, I can ask questions, or not so much tests or exam type things. They can write reflections.
Yep.
They can draw pictures that show what they learnt. Say, for example, in the fairy tale today, I could ask them to tell me the story.
Okay.
Or I could ask them to draw me the events in the story. There's a couple of different ways that I can gather what they learnt and assess them that way.
Yeah, I think like Kate, most of my assessment that I've done so far has been rather informal as opposed to formal assessment, particularly in a primary setting. So a lot of assessing as we go and checking the students' learning and maybe catering towards where they're at from those informal sort of assessments.
Why do you use that type of assessment?
Informal assessment?
Yeah.
I just haven't, being a pre-service teacher, I haven't had the opportunity to test formally to turn in results and that sort of thing. So a lot of my teaching's working towards those outcomes that they'll be assessed against, but not actually having or taking part in that assessment itself.
Okay. Are your teaching methods fairly stable or dynamic, and why?
I think mine are certainly dynamic in terms of what happens in the classroom. My planning tends to be pretty similar the whole way through, but then I'll change maybe my teaching style or the direction of the class depending on how it's going while it's actually taking place, I guess.
Okay.
I do the same, and it's something I learnt about today.
Yeah.
I find it's really important to be quite dynamic and flexible, and it doesn't, what I've learnt in my rounds is it doesn't really matter if I've planned everything from the beginning of the day to the very end. If my group aren't responding to what I've planned, I need to be flexible enough to redirect my entire class, but still try and cover what needed to be covered, but maybe just in a different way. So yeah, I think I'm quite capable of doing that, and I think that if a teacher can't or isn't capable, then trouble can brew.
Okay.
And throwing things out as well, like if something's not working and you've planned for it to be working, so stop it, go on with something else, and maybe rethink about how you're going to deliver it or change it and try again the next day.
So you need to be prepared for change.
You do definitely need
and
to.
certainly have a bit of a backup plan.
Yep.
Be prepared to just pull the pin if things aren't going so well.
Having said that, it's still important to plan for what you're doing.
Definitely, yeah. You plan for a best outcome, and if it doesn't work out that way, then you change to suit.
You just can't let it frustrate you.
Yep. Okay, so do you teach different subjects differently, and why?
Yes.
Perhaps to different students, or?
Yeah, I think specifically with the subjects, you teach differently because you have different materials to work with, and you're teaching very different things. So for like numeracy, you use a lot of concrete materials and that sort of thing, especially with the lower years, a lot of hands-on type of stuff that they can relate to the maths that they're completing at the same time and make it kind of real world. But then something like literacy, you're obviously not going to have the same sort of concrete materials to work with.
Yeah. Your
materials change, and they might be a written text, or they might be something that the students can respond to, like a picture or a video or something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess, the materials dictate, or the subject and materials dictate how you deliver it.
Okay.
I guess.
And Kate?
Yeah, I agree. I think depending on a subject, in the morning it's quite important. Well, most primary schools will have a couple of hours in the morning set aside purely for literacy, because the students need to be focused and quite alert, and so you will use a lot of energy in the morning to make sure that literacy session runs top notch, and that the students are well organised, and you can manage your classroom as well as possible. And then later on in the day I tend to relax. We've got an integrated subject at the end of the day, and usually it involves a lot of creativity. You can be flexible. There's quite a bit of noise in the classroom, and so the way I would deliver that would be a little bit more relaxed and put in a little bit more of an emphasis on having a bit of fun. Whereas at the start of the day, it's more, not serious in a primary school, but it is to an extent quite a bit more serious than the end of the day.